Hello, Abigail White of the Keen Witch here with the astrology for this week. This week has quite a number of really intense astrological moments, the foremost of which happens on Monday, and that is the full moon in Scorpio. This is on Monday. It is the second moon to our Taurus season combo. We had the new moon in Taurus, now it's the full moon in Scorpio, and this is how, if you've done astrology for a while, you know that this is how lunar things work. Sometimes we get an extra moon thrown in if the first moon is at 0 degrees or really close to 1 degrees, because then we have space for more lunations. But this is a two-parter. This is the Scorpio full moon. I'm excited for it. And also, it is a tough moon. Fixed signs, moon in detriment. It makes things tricky. However, detriment placements do tend to get things done. They do tend to get through the mire and through whatever is kind of messing things up. And it's definitely going to highlight some of the things that we are struggling with. It's also an opportunity to kind of clear the space around these things and, release the parts of ourselves and the things that might be holding us back. It could also just be us, being afraid to really fully step into the moment. This moon, or rather the sun in this lunar moment, is conjunct Uranus. So lots of chaos and change. So it's going to be something special and something that I think really forces us into a situation where we kind of have to choose to select ourselves and to do the thing that is best for us, regardless of whether it fits into the narrative of society or fits into what is considered the norm. Uranus doesn't do normal things, right? So I'll make a longer video on this. There's a couple other things happening around it that kind of mess with it. Also, the ruler of this moon is in Mars. It's obviously a water moon, but with Mars and Leo, it adds this kind of extra dash of spice. And we're, finally at the end of the Mercury retrograde. And so to me, especially with the conjunction with Uranus and Uranus ingressing into Gemini pretty soon, it feels like if you haven't gotten traction up until this point, this is kind of that point where we offload the last of the things we've been carrying since we entered into 2025. And we really get to release some of the stuff around the eclipses and around the retrogrades that we maybe have been holding on to that are already ready to be released. We just haven't done that final action of like tossing them to the wind, as it were. And then on that same day, and while they're not connected by degree, I do think this really ties into the energy of this moon. We have a Mercury-Pluto square. And when we hit a Mercury-Pluto square, it's really about secrets coming to light, the things we didn't know. People aren't going to be able to keep up their facades under this new moon. And it doesnn't mean that everyone's going to in your life is going to take off a mask and all of a sudden you're surrounded by monsters. I think it just means that the parts of people that aren't authentic are going to kind of fall away. So maybe you're in a situation with a friend or someone close to you where in order for you to maintain a relationship, they have to change something about themselves. And I'm not talking about innate change. I'm talking be more respectful of my time, things that are actually changeable. And you're going to be able to tell under this full moon if that is something that is possible for them, or if it is really just such an innate part of their nature that it's never going to change. And then you have to decide, is this something I can manage for the foreseeable future? Or is this something that just isn't something I can accept in a relationship? Things like that. Definitely feels kind of retrograde-y, especially since Mars will be in a trine to Venus as well. So it's still in that trine. So yeah, it's just one of those. This moon feels very much like an aha moment. The ahas may not be fun. It may be hard because in Scorpio, we're not really pulling back the curtain on a beautiful, lovely pastoral scene. We're pulling back the curtain on the underworld, as it were, especially with that Mercury-Pluto square. And it is also a moment to really sit with ourselves and to ask ourselves what we want, what parts of ourself are authentic. You don't have to share every part of yourself, obviously, with the world. I don't think that's healthy. But what parts do you want to share and what parts are essential? What are things that you can't and shouldn't be hiding in order to be your true authentic self? Some stuff, yeah, you can keep that for your personal life. But, I think a lot of us can get in the habit of being like, that really essential part of me, I'll just put that away with people who don't like it. And this is a moment to stop that, because then the people who are around you are not getting the authentic you. They're not getting the person that they deserve to see. And the truth is, if they can't handle that, then you're just not compatible. Then moving into Thursday, we have the Sun trine at the South Node. Now, I love this because that South Node has really been forcing us to really start to see things in all of their complexity and in their lack of function, for a better word, because Virgo is about purification and function and getting the small things to work together and understanding each little part and bringing them all into a group to create something beautiful. And that South Node's like, it's not really working. We don't have a piece, or the pieces actually build something else. The pieces that we have here don't make the thing that you want. The pieces that we have here will make something else that's also nice, but it's not the thing that you're looking for. So a lot of function is coming up. And with a Sun trine, it's really about what is functional. And of course, when we go into a trine, we then especially when we're dealing with two separate points. So, South Node, North Node, the Sun up here in a little trine, that creates a sextile with the North Node. So we're not just left with like what isn't functional. We're also left with an ability to have a vision for the future and to see what is possible. And with Saturn still being close-ish to that North Node, it's not quite as delulu as it might be. There is actual function within dreams. There's function within desire. Sometimes the North Node can be, especially in a sign like Pisces, like limitless possibilities. And the truth is, like, while we love limitless possibilities, as a human, we can only participate in so many possibilities. And so this really is nice because it kind of pulls things back, and we get to pick a couple of really beautiful possibilities to work on now that we know what isn't functioning and what just isn't going to serve our purpose. So this is a great day on Thursday to really, excuse me, to really ask ourselves, what do I want? And how am I going to pursue that functionally because of that kind of Saturn adjacency? So while it might be frustrating, especially beginning of the week, to kind of see where this dysfunction is, to see where people haven't been honest. And when I say not be honest, I'm not talking about technically, yeah, some people are lying, but technically people are lying. Just people haven't like given you all the information. Yeah, there's going to be some people who intentionally withhold stuff, and we all hope that they leave our lives quickly. But there's also a part where it just is what it is, and not everyone knows the information that you need and we need to have in that moment. But now we do, and now we get to make choices based on that. Then we move into Saturday and we get that full Sun Uranus conjunction, which is kind of a goodbye in a way. It's the last time the Sun will be conjunct Uranus, and by the next time we have the conjunction, we'll be having a conjunction in Gemini for the first time. So this is a goodbye to Uranus and Taurus. We will have the retrograde in the later part of 2025, where Uranus will head back into, I gotta get my words around myself. Where we'll have Uranus back. I think it's actually Uranus will be back in the fall, into Taurus. So we'll have it back in the fall for, let's just say, the new moon in Scorpio. Actually, it'll be at 29 degrees in retrograde. But this is the last time the Sun gets to do that. And if you think about it, this is also something happened similar to this last year, except we had a really massive buildup of Venus, Jupiter, and the Sun. We're all coming into contact with Uranus in a few days. So this is also a callback to last year, roughly around this time. I think it was a little bit earlier. I want to say it happened in like the major impact, if I remember, was like Aries season. Although it obviously kind of percolated out into Taurus season. So also this is a callback to what was happening last year this time, the moments of kind of understanding and the big shifts that were happening this time last year. And then just in this moment with Sun Uranus, it is really about embracing ourselves and the situations we are in and the world we are in, where it is in this moment, but also doing things differently, knowing and seeing, especially in Taurus, that things are the way they are physically, but then being like, we're not doing this anymore. We're doing something different. We're trying something unexpected and new and magical and special. Um, and we don't have to keep, banging at the same doors with the same tools, with the same key that doesn't work, with the same screwdriver that isn't the right head of the screwdriver for the screws on the door. Like, we don't have to stand at the door of society or at the door of the world as it is and keep trying the same things. We don't have to stand in our own lives and just accept everything as the norm. It is time to try something new. It is time to explore. And also, it's not even about trying something different. It's about doing things in a way that has, never been done before with Uranus. It's about not just trying something new, but trying something innovative, trying something unexpected and wild, and rebellious and free. So, this is an important moment for that. I also think it has a lot to do with protecting the world that we have. I think the whole transit of Uranus and Taurus has been about the earth and about caring for it and how we don't and how we take advantage of it and do harmful things. And even though we've had the information about climate change for years and years and years, we've done nothing about it. And we've been tricked and manipulated by oil executives and oil companies. They knew back in the 70s what was going on, and they told us that it was straws and our personal stuff. And while we can do things, and I absolutely believe in doing small things in your day to day, using less plastic, things like that, if they don't stop mass polluting the world and driving, and destroying our natural resources and logging old growth forests and destroying these beautiful landmarks and sacred spaces for indigenous people. There's multiple fights in the US right now, that indigenous people are spearheading because it is on their land, that are being tried to push through to destroy sacred sites so that people can frack and log and mine and do all these things. So in this moment with the sun, it's time to lock in. It's time to say, moving into Uranus and Gemini, we're not going to do things the same. We're not going to let people with a bunch of money take all of our resources and destroy things that our children deserve to see, or our nieces and nephews, or my next door neighbor's kid. You don't have to like kids to believe that future generations of humans and the people that come after us and ourselves deserve a beautiful world, and that the world deserves to have caregivers that love it and that care for it. And this also all goes back to indigenous sovereignty and land back across not just the US, but other colonized places where the indigenous populations are still oppressed. And if you are a white person or someone who doesn't come from that history, I would encourage you to start looking into land back movements, to start, you know, reposting in the very least, the fights that are going on across the US that are led by indigenous people, to offer support, to offer whatever help you can. And when it comes to activism and caring about something, you don't have to go in and give up everything and shake up your life to make a difference. Because I know a lot of people, I think we've been lied to by the powers that be. They give us a very all or nothing narrative because they know that if we just do a little bit, we'll change everything. But like, all of us can't just drop everything and go. It's a lie. Doing the little things, participating in sharing stuff, talking with people about indigenous sovereignty and land protection. And, something really beautiful that's happening in California is the removal of several dams, and also controlled burns, because the indigenous were doing controlled burns in California for centuries. And then we came in and we're like, no, we're going to plant invasive species and also stop controlled burns. It's going to be great. We're going to steal your land. And then we have these massive wildfires that are not only spurred by, the invasive species, but also the fact that we haven't been doing these controlled burns. It gets dangerous if you don't burn out the undergrowth in places like California. So yeah, that's my spiel on Sun conjunct Uranus. But this is the time to really get down and really get serious about the world you live in, the neighborhood you live in, about doing things differently, about not towing the line the way it's ever been towed before. It's not the time for this. It's the time to be brave. It's the time to be bold. It's the time to join others who care about the same things. That is the Sun conjunct Uranus. we are not doing this over again. And especially as it moves out of Taurus, we've learned a lot of lessons and it feels like we haven't done enough. And so in Gemini, it's time to really, really buckle down, get a little kooky, get a little cray and start to make real change with our resources in our lives and things like that. And I'm not saying that, Uranus and Taurus was wasted. A lot of us learned a lot of good lessons about self-sustaining and the things that we can manage or handle, and the change that we can make even in the last few years. So it's not about getting down on ourselves, but it's about being like, so this is where I am, Uranus and Taurus, and the next stage, I'm going to ramp it up, Uranus and Gemini. All right, and then we head on to Sunday, and we have Mercury square Mars. And we really have to face our passions and how we get it out into the world. If you have been keeping something close to your chest, and it's not because you're working on it, it's because you feel apprehension about releasing it into the world, maybe ask yourself why on Sunday. Maybe ask yourself, like, what is the project or the passion or the thing that you're keeping to yourself? How is it benefiting anyone if it's locked away? If it really is something that you really truly want to share and should share with the world, like, this is the moment to really be like, you know what? This is my thing and I want to share it with people. And no, not every art form needs to be shared and not every art form should be monetized. I want to be clear, those two things are very different. Sharing your art and then making money off it are very different things. We've kind of convoluted that with the internet and the fact that we live in like forced poverty in the US where like we're forced to monetize everything, not our fault. But whatever you've been waiting to share, whatever you haven't quite had the courage to put out into the world to share with someone. Maybe it's your activism, maybe it's some kind of art or passion that you're carrying, maybe it's your love for plants, maybe you haven't been, raising plants, or you have a plot of land or a little like box that you could put plants in and you haven't yet. This is the time. Pop those seeds in. Do something that requires labor. I always say about squares is like, yeah, they're difficult and can be frustrating and they do cause tension, but they also cause traction, which means if we activate in a square, we can get stuff done. Will it be easy? No. But in the fight to put that thing out, it's almost like coming out of a cocoon. We build muscle around our determination and our desire to do things. I think a good example in synastry is like a Venus-Venus square. It's a great synastry aspect for attraction and, having this kind of like connection where you just kind of want to kind of be up close to each other. And it can be both frustrating and delightful, especially in squares with Venus. There's usually competing needs, but those competing needs can also be what make you attractive to each other. If we're talking about romance, if we're talking about friendship, it can also be like what the other person needs in order to be a part of a whole relationship. And yeah, can it be frustrating because those things compete? Yes. So when we hit a square like Mars and Mercury, yeah, it can be us really struggling to get our voice out there. It can be us really not knowing quite how to get from point A to point B with our passion and with our words and with our presentation of things. Also, great reminder, Mercury rules commerce as well. So there is an aspect of this that is like selling, putting a price tag on your stuff, if that's something that you want to do and feels right for you. So no, it's not easy, but it's also, and you can tell I have detriment planets. I'm like, yes, do the hard thing. But this is the time, this is the moment to do the thing that you felt resistance around. And yeah, maybe it's when the square kind of decimates a little bit and Mercury kind of moved past the point, which will be like a day or two. Yeah, maybe it doesn't happen on Sunday, but this is the time to really be like, I'm feeling this resistance. Why? I'm, I've been sitting in this kind of middle place for so long. What way am I going to go finally? And then we also have Jupiter in a nice little final square to the nodes. And when we get a T square, especially with a planet like Jupiter, bigger, longer transits, it can really feel eclipsy. It can feel a little bit as though we're in an eclipse. There is that kind of feeling of like just shaking resistance because this is how I explain T squares. So we get the 2 points and then we have the square that comes down from Taurus. And so it creates a T in the sky, basically. And then the outlet of that T-square is then Sagittarius. Um, that's where it's the only way out. So, as we sit in something that might be frustrating, we are also sitting in like questions about the future. What is abundance to you in the context of the journey that we've been going through with, Jupiter and Gemini? Jupiter and Gemini has been a bit of a jump scare, Jupiter in detriment, Jupiter being like, I'm gonna be a little crazy. I'm not Santa Claus. I'm a little bit of a trickster. And one minute you might think you have something, and then the next minute you're gonna have something else. And it could be fun. Heavy on the could. So we're in this moment where Jupiter is, of course, wanting to bring expansion and magnification and abundance into whatever place in our chart this falls. But we are at the crossroads of fate, basically, of what has been and what is to come. And so I do really feel on Sunday, for a lot of us, there's going to be a moment where we either know that whatever path we're on is not the right path for us in a Jupiter sense, or to know that the path is the path for us. And even with maybe issues and conflicts and resistance, that this is the way forward and we're going to make it by hook or crook, which is very exciting, but also a little stressful to have to sit in that, to sit with our resources and with the abundance we may or may not feel that we have, and really look at what the future might be and what the past has given us as either a gift or a burden, depending on how we feel about it. So it's a really transformative week. There's a lot of revelation. I do think if you have been really questioning a path, firstly, if you're still questioning it, you should get a reading with someone. It doesn't have to be me, can be anyone, but I do offer readings for this type of thing. I do tarot and astrology. Um, I also do spirit readings, but I encapsulate those in my tarot and astrology readings as well. Anyways, you can ask, but if you're, lone wolf in it, doing it on your own, that's also something you can do. But it feels very much like a week of coming to terms with things. And I wonder with that Jupiter square, if you're not going to be offered something and you're going to have to, it's not going to be a simple decision. It's going to be something that maybe you need, and there might be some strings attached, and it's a moment of really confirming with the universe what you want. And maybe some of those strings are something that you're fine with having, but maybe some of those strings that are attached are the universe being like, I'm giving you a good thing, but you have to sacrifice some stuff. And it might be, this happens a lot to my clients and to me, it very well might be the universe being like, here's something that might meet a lot of your needs, but it is still kind of the semblance of the past. And it has things that you're technically too big for. Are you going to, go to the store shopping, get something too small, and then keep it instead of returning it, for something bigger and maybe having to wait? And I don't think the waiting period is going to be long. I think a lot of stuff's going to kick off in June and July for a lot of us. So just be cautious when making decisions this week. Make sure you do have all the information. That Pluto Mercury square is activating from the beginning of the week. We've got that Mars Mercury square, activating at this point in the week, which is also leading us into our Mars opposition. Well, no, we've already had the Mars opposition. Never mind, ignore that. But you know, we're getting a lot of good information to make choices, and it feels like some choices are coming, but they're not going to be all good or all bad. It's going to be really complex. There's going to be a lot of gray area, and it's really about what you need in this moment. And I think the universe really wants to know if we're on the same page about our needs, and if we are willing to maybe wait a hot second to get those needs met, versus moving forward with something that maybe is going to force us back into old dynamics. All right, my loves, that is the reading for this week. I am excited to see what comes. I know it's not an easy week. These aspects, like, I talk positively about squares because I find that there's a lot of benefit to working with squares, but it still doesn't make it easy, and I want to recognize that. So I know it's not exactly the most simple week. Uranus conjunctions aren't exactly small moments that are easy to manage, but I do feel this is a really important week for getting clear with all of the things that we have learned since entering 2025. If you have any questions or any comments about your experiences this week or how you feel about it, please pop them in the comments. Also, like and subscribe. It always makes my day when I get a new subscriber. And I always love to hear from you all. Anyways, I will see you in a different space and time, and I will probably see you in the Scorpio full moon video.